The biggest problem right now in America for health really is overconsumption. We just eat too much food, like white bread. Eat that all day long, your stomach physically fills up, but there's no nutrition, so that hunger signal stays active. Then you're always craving. When you digest food, it takes a lot of energy. You're spending a lot of digestive energy, especially when it's refined and like pastas and things like that. You have to spend a lot of energy. That's why you get really tired after a big meal. So why is that? Well, you're digesting a lot. You spend all this energy to digest the food. You spend it, you no longer have it. I never felt stressed, but physiologically I was, because of overtraining and because of just eating kind of an average diet. So that's what drove my cortisol levels up, prevented me from getting into that deep sleep. And then I was never really rested. And then, craving caffeine and sugar and those things that give you that immediate energy, but you pay later.
First of all, dude, I wanted to say it's great to see your face. You're as handsome as ever. Your hair is perfect as always. I've always coveted your hair. And it's nice to know that you're pretty much down the street. A lot of you, I thought that, Brendan has a place in Idlewild. And he was just saying that he had to snowshoe 2.5 miles in. And it's funny because I bought my first pair of snowshoes. Let me add people here, admit. I bought my first pair and I didn't realize that you can get those little extensions in the back end. I don't know what kind you have, but I didn't know that. And I kept on post holing. I was like, these things don't work very well. You know what I mean? And I did a little research and I saw what those little things are in the back. So I got they're amazing now, And in my backyard, the entire time I was in Jackson Hole, I swore that I was going to build a little snowshoe path. And I never did. I only used it to kind of go from my house down to the ski area, which is a short ride, as Scott knows, because he spent some time there. Anyway, snowshoe talk is officially over. Everybody, thank you. Brendan Brazier, rock star, superstar, superhuman, kind of amazing. It's really Brendan, has a lot to do with, I don't know, Brendan, I've been vegan now for 2.5 years, right?
If you're aware I didn't know you that long.
I had tried twice and I didn't quite have it down. But then I was watching Scott Morgan. You can see his shiny face with the Eat Plants hat on. Perfect. Look at that arm. Look at that plant-based arm. And hi, Dan. How are you, man? Good to see you. Nice to see you, man. No leaves on your trees yet. But, Brendan introduced plant-based eating to me early on. I was just sort of eat whatever and work out hard and hoping it was all going to work out. And as I got older, it didn't work out. It worked out a little bit when I was younger because of metabolism and because of youth. But then youth went away and I'm going to be 65 in a couple of months. And as of the last couple of years, yeah, I've been plant-based and really loving it. I cheat, whereas Brendan does not. And I'm going to get into his bio right now. And you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure this is spot on. And then I've got 6 questions that I hope that all of you ask, because there's no better expert when it comes to what it takes, down to the morsel, down to the ingredients, down to all of it, when it really comes to how certain things affect our body and what helps and what hurts. So here we go. Brendan Brazier is one of the only few professional athletes in the world whose diet is 100% plant-based. He's a professional Ironman triathlete, best-selling author of The Thrive Diet, and the creator of an award-winning line of whole food nutritional products called Vega. Maybe you've heard of them. There's some in my cabinet right now, even though I have my own line. And co-founder, I should say, of Pulp Culture and Fire Road, and an executive producer of the film that many of you, I'm sure you've seen. I know Scott's seen it 6 times, called Game Changers. He's also a 2-time Canadian ultra marathon champion. Unbelievable. Brendan is regarded as one of the world's leading authorities on plant-based performance nutrition, and now invests in and works with socially responsible food and tech companies whose mandate is to fix our food system and reduce the environmental strain of food production. How was that? Was that all pretty close, man?
That was good, but you know what? Happily, some of that is not true anymore. There's the very first line. There are so many vegan athletes now. Professional.
That's true.
So that's true. That's good. That line, we can cross that out.
Yeah, one of the only. How about I'm going to cross out is one of many.
One of many now. One of
many. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Scott Morgan's one of them. I am now one of them. I will tell you though, I'm a cheater. So I was in Jackson Hole and they had medium rare elk medallions on the menu. And I ate them because elk are vegan. So I ate a vegan. I think Scott stuck to the vegan that night, didn't you, dude? You were clean. You ate clean. but yeah, just in general, my energy's up, I sleep better, I recover faster, I'm less mood swings. I think the first few times I tried, I was doing that too many vegan, gluten-free crackers and cookies, kind of like what Scott does now. And just waiting to see get a response out of that boy. And I've got, Fire Road was delivering for a while, which I know you're an investor, and I used 3 different plant-based delivery food companies just to get the variety, which is kind of my most recent attempt at being vegan. And Shauna's so darn busy that it's hard for her to cook meals for me because she's not vegan. She's probably about 80% plant-based, but she wants her chicken once in a while, and she wants a nice burger once in a while, and so she has it, right? And it's working for her. She's never been healthier and feeling great. So without further ado, Brendan, I just wanted you to, I know this is really loosey-goosey. It does not like you have to give a big old speech here or anything about it, but maybe kind of get into how you got started and your journey thus far, and then I've got some questions. But we're sort of interrupting along the way. If you feel like there's a moment that somebody can ask a question, and they're already popping up, I see, which is kind of cool. So
yeah, we'll keep it really casual. So any questions that pop up, just ask anytime, and
terrific.
Won't bore you with too much background. But I started off. I've been vegan now since I was around 16, 17. I'm 48 now, so it's been a big chunk of my life. And I started off running track in high school, just trying to be a better athlete. Started trying different ways of eating, and just wanted to recover better, that thing. And when I started doing triathlons soon after running track, because to be a professional runner is very, very difficult, especially, in America. But doing triathlon, it's sort of more, because you eliminate a huge chunk of the world, because you have to have access to a pool, to a bike, and you can kind of a little bit buy your way into it. If you, unfortunately, if you can afford to have certain things, your odds of becoming an athlete, professional athlete in that sport is better. That's why I love running so much, because it's so pure, that none of that happens, but it's incredibly hard to be a professional runner. But like I say, it's a little easier as a triathlete. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do triathlon as a profession. I want to do Ironman. And Ironman, some of you may know, it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, and then a marathon, so 26.2 miles. A really long event that it's all about volume. It's just about packing in the training. Like, more is better at a certain point in an Ironman's development. More is better. So it's just packing it in, just getting the volume in as much as you can every day. And of course, recovery plays a huge part of that, because the faster you recover, the more you can do in less time, the quicker you improve. So my focus became on recovery, and that's what led me to looking at nutrition as a way to improve recovery. So this is in my late teens, I'm really getting into this, and just try different ways of eating, just all different things. And nothing worked as well as when I tried completely plant-based, but at first, it wasn't great. I was doing it wrong, loading up on lots of just refined carbs and things a lot of people make mistakes with, very common. And then started learning what I was lacking: vitamin B12, iron, calcium, complete protein, making a blender drink that eventually became Vega. But that was me just blending it up myself. And then we brought it out commercially in 2004. I'm no longer involved. It's 19 years down the road now, and my partner and I sold it and stuff, but that's how that started. So it was really just trying to solve a problem that I had for myself. And then I developed a bunch of nutritional ideas, that people ask me, like, how is it that you're improving more quickly than average? What are you doing? What's your training like? And I said, well, really, my training's pretty much the same as everyone's. It's really my nutrition. And so I wrote a very short book. It was 80 pages, self-published it in 2004. And it was really frequently asked questions put into a book format, and just explaining my nutritional philosophy in there. And I can expand on some of that, or take some questions, and I can go back to that, or however we want to do it.
Well, my first question is this to you and anybody else. I'll probably sort of read some of these as well. So I know you kind of covered it a little bit, but what you were doing, the refined carbs and not making those mistakes, when did you go just completely plant-based? And what year was it And what specifically were you eating? Because I think a lot of people are so curious about that, especially about the amount of output that you had with ultra marathons and triathlons and stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously you were recovering faster and you were achieving more and you were winning races. So at like 2004, you started to make those changes. When did you finally go, aha, in between, that discovery phase or that experimental phase, and when you kind of nailed it? When was that?
I mean, for me, it was, because I became mostly vegan, very close to early 90s. But it was around like 95, 96 where I felt like I developed a good handle on it. And again, this is pre-Vega. This is 2000, like I say, late 90s. And it was really just so looking at food more holistically, as an example. So not eating the refined carbs as much as I mentioned. So when you digest food, it takes a lot of energy. You're spending a lot of digestive energy, especially when it's refined and like pastas and things like that. You have to spend a lot of energy. That's why you get really tired after a big meal. You take in all these calories, which are food energy. You think you would have more energy right after a big meal, but you have less. So why is that? Well, you're digesting a lot. You spend all this energy to digest food. You spend it, you no longer have it. So I started looking at foods that would digest more easily. So you have less energy out, more nutrition in. So swapping out those refined carbs for things like sprouted grains like buckwheat, amaranth, quinoa, and sprouting them because they're seeds technically. So when you sprout them, I did all the sprouting on my own back then. I had a jar and I would go and get these grains and put them in there. They would sprout. And so they become so much easier to digest and very, very filling. So nutrient rich. It actually shifts some of the protein increases and fat decreases when you sprout as well. And then the enzyme inhibitors come off. And it's just a much more nutritious food that you spend less energy to digest. So I felt so much better doing that. So that was one of the principles in my book was high net gain nutrition, I call it. So looking at foods that will digest more easily, take less energy and return more nutrition. And really just making those changes, like I mentioned, swapping out this refined grains for whole grains, but not just whole. If you can sprout them, that's even better. And then, for convenience sake too, just a lot of sprouted bread, like Ezekiel bread or like Silver Hills, that's a brand as well that you can get locally at Whole Foods. And so lots of protein, 6 grams of protein per slice of bread, because it's all sprouted. They don't use flour, they just use sprouted grains. So things like that, I found made a big difference to me.
Wow. What is here's a question. There's like when I first tried, I think I just wasn't eating enough salads and I wasn't eating enough. I was eating too many refined vegan. Like, a lot of people will look at a box or a can or a bag or whatever it is, and they'll see that V on there and they think they can just, go to town on that stuff. But a lot of it is, even though it's technically vegan, it's not necessarily as healthy as, say, sprouted grains and fruits, vegetables and whatnot.
Yeah, and you get to a point too where you have to balance the just total calories and nutrition. Because typically, like things like lettuce, obviously they have a greater nutrient ratio in general. They have more nutrition per calorie, but sometimes you just need those calories. Like when you're burning so much, you're training many hours a day. Sometimes you just want to get, you want to get some more calories in, and doing that through high quality fat and things like nuts and seeds with sprouting them. So you got those high quality fats, but they're raw, so they're not denatured at all. They do absorb well. And then again, next level, you sprout them. So the enzyme inhibitors come off. So you got really nutritious food. So I started, I went from peanut butter, which is of course refined, not necessarily that bad, but I was eating so much of it just to get the calories in, swapped over to just sprouting all kinds of raw nuts and seeds and just blending that up and had that in a food processor. And that's what I started using. And that change alone made a huge difference because you still get the calories, but you also get the nutrition and the high quality fat that your body actually metabolizes and digests way more easily.
So let me ask you this, and it's not on my list, but it's the first thing that popped in my head based on what you were saying. let's say you got somebody out there who listens to you and understands what you've been through and all the positive the positive outcome as a result of making this shift years ago. And they see what's going on with other athletes. You know what I mean? There's a lot of professional football players and track athletes and basketball players. It's not as rare. It's not only a few, it's many now. But a lot of people have been eating pretty poorly for quite a long time. And they've got those addictions to the fat, sugar, salt, and chemicals that come with our typical American diet. Like, what's the best strategy for somebody? Because I'm assuming it's not an all or nothing approach here, right? Well, what would be the best strategy for somebody to kind of ease themselves into it? Because their taste buds, their palate has been so inundated with this, these powerful addictive processed garbage. And then when they have a salad, they're trying to mask it with dressings or I just know a lot of people have tried, and I was one of them. I mean, I finally figured it out because I have my protein powder is plant-based, and it's something I do twice a day to fill in the gaps for me, and it seems to be working. And I think a lot of people are doing that as well. But if people really wanted to make the switch, what would that look like? And how long would it take from like the day they decide to make some changes to the point where I know everybody's different too. I can't have a one size fits all here, but like, what would that look like, Brendan?
Yeah, for me, it started off with the blender drink. I was just packing everything in there. So like hemp seeds, chia seeds, pea protein, rice protein, some sort of nuts and seeds that were sprouted, some sort of fruit, and blend that all up and have that. And it's so nutrient dense that it actually turns off your hunger signal. Like the biggest problem right now in America for health really is overconsumption. We just eat too much food. But that wouldn't have even been possible a few decades ago, because food was synonymous with nutrition. The more food you ate, the more nourished you became. So it's like this foolproof thing. You couldn't overeat because when you ate, it turned off your hunger signal. But that's just not the case anymore, of course. Like white bread, eat that all day long, your stomach physically fills up, but there's no nutrition, so that hunger signal stays active. And then you're always craving. So if you can get nourished, you get the nutrients in, and it's going to turn off that hunger signal. So then you just naturally go about your day and don't crave food the way you used to. It does take time. It depends where you're at too, of course. If you've eaten standard American diet for 40 years, it's going to take longer than if you're a young kid. So for me, it was making that blender drink, having it every morning. That was just my go-to right away. And then add some protein powder, like your vegan protein powder, add that in there, blend that all up and have that. And things like salt too, people do crave salt, and salt is not bad if you're an athlete. If you're sweating it out, that's what you sweat. So make sure you get enough of that back in. So it's okay to put salt on your food. Like don't think all that's bad. And fat too, good quality fat is perfectly good.
Right.
And even sugar, I don't think it's necessarily bad. Like it's bad before you go to bed. Like you don't want to have a bunch of sugar before you just go to bed, and it inhibits your growth.
So like all those people that have that little cup or bowl of ice cream before they go to bed.
It's the worst time to have it. If you want to have that, have it right after workout, when your body needs it, or before a workout, when you're about to go and do a high intensity workout. You're going to burn sugar. You're going to burn glucose. Like you're not burning fat at that point, right? Because it's high intensity. So have some sugar right before, have it right after to replenish, but don't have it before you go to bed. Then it just gets stored as fat because it's not being used. And when you're doing a long, slow workout, then you can have more fat before that. So it just depends on what you're doing too. But yeah, I think starting off with a really nutrient dense smoothie is a great way to do it. And then seizing into it, helping get nourished. And then when you're nourished, you do change your palate. Like you mentioned, you don't crave those over flavored foods. And then if you go back to it a few months later, a bag of chips you can't even eat it. It just tastes
so nasty. Yeah.
So yeah, your palate will start to crave really simple, basic foods the way it should. And then you don't feel deprived. Like you never have to feel as though you want something and can't have it if you do it right. And it will take time. This is not overnight. Like this will take weeks. It can take months. It can take years. Like I say, if you've eaten a standard American diet for 40 years, be committed for a year. Like this is gonna, it's a building process. And but just taking those small steps every day and then it's done. You don't have to think about it anymore. I don't crave bad foods. I do eat some things once in a while that some people would probably consider not that healthy, like potato chips. Like after a long, hot run or bike or something, you're sick of sweeter things, and there's potatoes, it's salt, and it's oil. Get good oil,
Right.
get potato chips, and it's not that bad. And you got that crunch, you got that salt, you get some fat, you're getting some calories. It's not that bad. So don't feel as though you can never have those things. And if you get the really flavored ones, then that could be less good, because you're maybe going back on your palate. Like you're then teaching it to want more flavors. But if you get the really simple ones, it's I don't think it's that bad.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can buy that at Whole Foods or Erewhon, or there's places that, like, you could flip over the ingredients and there's 3 or 4 things on the ingredient list,
Right.
and they're not saturated fats. They're just, there's just something, and you get a small bag, and that'll feel like, I feel like, there's some comfort food here. And it's like you said, it's got the basic potato, some salt and some fat.
Yeah.
So part 2 to my question is this, which I think a lot of people would be interested in, and is once you've sort of arrived to a certain degree, like you've made these changes and you've fought the good fight, and it's taken you maybe weeks. Let me let Terry in here. Maybe it's taken weeks or months or even longer. What would be the thing that people would notice? Like I think, like, if I had that intel about how well I would perform, how well I would recover, how well I would sleep, how all these different, how my digestive system would work better. Like, okay, if I did everything that Brendan just said, what would be the maybe the mental and emotional, not the emotional, but the mental and physical changes that I would see?
For me, it was there are quite a few things. A big thing is sleep quality. I really noticed, and now I can track it. I have a Whoop. Some people have Aura. But you don't even really need that. I mean, notice this was like 20 years ago, 30 years ago for me. So like you just notice you feel rested when you wake up, because the deep sleep is deeper. Your cortisol, and the reason for that is your cortisol is lower because you're easy, like when you don't spend as much energy digesting, because energy out, I mean, any type of work is seen as stress. So cortisol goes up, the stress hormone. It inhibits your ability to build muscle and to burn fat, and it inhibits your ability to get into a deep phase of sleep, the delta phase. So a lot of North Americans, we just, our adrenals are fried from coffee, from stress, from overwork, from overtraining, whatever it is. And therefore you don't get into that deep phase of sleep. So you wake up, you're still tired. What's the first thing you do when you're tired? You crave coffee, right? So you're in that cycle. And a lot of people can't get out of that. And then 1 cup of coffee becomes 2 and 3, and you're just that spiral to the bottom until you're completely burned out and frazzled. So if you can look long term, because coffee, I mean, very much works. Like it, you get energy, but it's like shopping with a credit card. You get it now, you pay later. And you do have to pay, like you do hormonally pay. And, I learned this the hard way, as many people did. As an athlete, I was overtraining years and years ago, and I wasn't sleeping well. I had sugar cravings at night. I was gaining fat, even though I was exercising a huge amount. I was losing muscle. I was getting, my strength to weight ratio was going down. And I went to a few doctors. I had no idea. I went to an endocrinologist, and he basically said, you're hormonally injured. Like you're essentially, you have an injury, but you can't see it. It's hormonal. Wow. I'm like, that's interesting. Never heard that.
That's a lot of people though right now. Sure.
It's 90% of North Americans, because of all those things I mentioned. Stress is huge. And stress doesn't have to be bad. Like in my first book, I divide stress into complementary and uncomplementary. Like complementary is stress that leads to a benefit. So exercise physically is a form of stress. You're breaking down muscle and your body overcompensates, becomes stronger. That's why it works. That's why training works. But it still takes a toll. Your body has to spend resources to compensate it and become stronger. So physiologically, any type of exercise is categorized as stress, and cortisol goes up. But your gain is fitness. You get stronger. Work can be seen as the same thing. Sure, it can get stressful, whatever, but you have something to show for it. You've accomplished something, you've achieved something. Whereas some things, uncomplimentary stress, you have no benefit, like worrying about things you have no control over. The mental mindset, like know what you control, know what you don't. Don't worry about the other stuff. Let it go. Some people are better than others at this, but Stress is stress, physical, emotional,
Mental.
whatever. It's still mental. It's all part of it. And poor quality food, a lot of nutrient absent food that takes a lot of digestive energy also elevates cortisol because it too is stress. So my stress levels, without feeling it, because I did so much exercise, like you don't always feel stress in the traditional way, right? Like, oh, I'm so stressed. I never felt stressed, but physiologically I was, because of overtraining and because of just eating kind of an average diet. So that's what drove my cortisol levels up, prevented me from getting into that deep sleep. And then I was never really rested. And then, craving caffeine and sugar and those things that give you that immediate energy, but you pay later. So if you can nourish your adrenals, bring that down, sleep deeply, you'll wake up, you won't crave caffeine, you won't crave sugar, you'll get leaner, you'll get stronger, and you can get by with even less sleep. You can get by with 7 hours of sleep instead of 8 and feel amazing because you've slept so deeply. So it's like, then you're more productive. You have an extra hour every day to do whatever, right? So the value of lowering cortisol is just huge. And that came with me, like when I started eating nutrient-dense plant-based foods, eating lots of mineral-dense foods, lots of seaweeds, big salads. That was the biggest thing for me, for just the lower cortisol, which was measurable, and it is measurable. You can get tested, but the symptoms are very, very specific, those ones that I mentioned. So you don't even really need to get it tested. You'll know if cortisol is too high. So for me, that was a complete game changer.
Brendan, what's the last meal of the day for you look like? What's the last thing you eat before you're done eating for the day?
Usually, it depends if I'm training a lot. I'll have just a protein shake with water, just some sort of, like whether it's pea protein, rice protein. There's different types now. All kinds of different alternative proteins that are out there. I've tried your plant-based protein. It's great, like something like that, right? You have that, you just mix with water, and there you go. That's usually just that. Because like I say, you don't want sugar or any carbs before you go to bed, because it can inhibit your growth hormone release when you sleep, and also prevent you from getting into that deep phase of sleep. So that's good. Sometimes too, if I have been doing more, like sometimes I'll have just like a really simple like rice cracker. I know there's some carbs in there, but then some sort of sprouted butter on that, or even the sprouted bread with a bit of sprouted almond butter, something like that.
Oh, that sounds good. So what time would that be, and what time would you go to bed?
I mean, right now I'm kind of all over the place because I'm not in a set regiment. If I'm in the groove, feeling like I'm working and getting things done, I just stay up until I feel like going to sleep. So it depends.
Are you like me? Like sometimes it's 11:30, sometimes it's 1:30. That's kind of where I'm at. You know what I mean? That's been my.
Yeah, I mean, 1:30 would definitely be late for me, but anywhere from like 9:30 till 11:30, kind of in that range somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think too, like if I was very regimented and if I was trying to be a serious athlete again, I would go to bed earlier. Like when you study circadian rhythm and what goes on there, I think there is enough valid science to suggest that, like if you got to be in bed before 10, really, to really take full advantage of circadian rhythm and all of that. But now, like I say, I'm not a competitive athlete anymore. And
right.
No, so I don't.
Well, I mean, when you used to come to, like I live in, I guess what's called the hills of LA, Brentwood Hills, up there. Brent, you had a place up in Topanga, which most people would never ride their bike from Topanga to my house, but you did like during the week before Shoulders and Arms, or when you would come to Playa. It was just, I mean, I don't know how many calories you were burning and how much ground you covered, but it just was, the reason why I bring that up is because, you eat so clean, you've got it down, like every morsel matters to you. I say that a lot to people. I say, hey, like, what am I doing wrong? I said, well, let's look at what you're eating. I mean, I went on a trip recently with some friends, and we all took our grocery baskets and we were in a Whole Foods. And when everybody got in line, I looked in the grocery baskets and I went, for some of them, I went, are you kidding me? You're like, wow, we're in Whole Foods. I thought we were shopping in Vons based on what I'm looking in your grocery basket. So, you know what I mean? Look, like I'm not I'm probably not as clean as you are, but I'm a hell of a lot better than I used to be. And I noticed that now that I've made these pretty substantial changes, especially after I got sick in 2017, you know what I mean? It's interesting for you to say that you basically do 2 shakes a day. You're doing maybe a more dense one in the morning to get you going for the day. And then you do kind of a lighter one. And that's exactly what I do. I do the same thing. It's those 2 shakes and then a meal. I have like a meal during the week, during the day. And if I'm really hungry, then I'll get I'll get mixed nuts or something, or I'll have some fruit or whatever it is. That's my little go-to. But so it's interesting how, and here's another thing too, that as I look at you and you're 48 now.
Yeah.
48, dude, you look 48, like I look 108, you know what I mean? So it's just impressive. I was looking at a photo of Andre Agassi. I don't know if anybody's seen Andre lately, but it's just interesting what happens when you stop training and you stop caring. I mean, if you look at Andre Agassi now, and a lot of professional, especially football players, I mean, they blow up like ticks when their career's over because they've been pushing so hard and, being at the very top of their game. And, it's really kind of too bad. Like you figure like now that I finally I can relax a little bit and I can be more active now and I don't have to be quite so committed, that more people would be like you, that just, I know you're not a professional anymore and you're not, I don't know how many 50 Ks you're running and how many marathons you're running these days, but do you ever have a thought like, I think I want to just get lazy for a while? Is it just so ingrained? It's just so who you are now after all your history that there's no way you would ever just kind of let it go to any great degree.
Yeah, no, some people think that's discipline, but it's really not, I just enjoy it. The reason I started running and biking and doing that in the first place was because I enjoyed it. No other reason, Yeah. And it just is a happy coincidence. It helps you stay healthy, right? That was just sort of a nice outcome there. But no, I love it as much as I ever did. I get out, to the trails several times a week, and I go to the gym. I live by Gold's in Venice, and classic. Still see Arnold there some mornings, and I think he's 80 now. He's still there, and I saw an interview with him a while ago too, and he said, why are you still lifting weights? And you lifted weights a long time ago. You did that back. Like, why are you still doing it? And he said, well, I also slept a long time ago. I ate a long time ago. It's just what I do. I lift weights. I'm Arnold.
Right.
And I think that's the same with us too. And lots of people who I think got into it for, the right reasons. I don't know what the right are, but very pure, right? I mean, we just very much enjoy the movement and the sport, and it's not about some external validation or anything. It's just that it's fun. We like to do it.
Yeah. I go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, it keeps us in shape too, and stuff. And like plyo that did for a long time, just getting super deep, that full range of motion and all that. It's just future proof, right? I mean, that sort of stuff is, I just think, so valuable. As we get older and older, it just becomes more valuable. So, simple things. It's not, you don't have to overthink it.
Well, we're definitely gonna have to have you back on the list for, I thought, like I said, I thought you were up in Idlewild, but now that I know you're in the hood, man, I expect to see you once in a while. And now, and like Scott will tell you, Mary, who's on this, you can see Mary with her ball cap on there. Mary is now the plyo superstar. She's like you used to be, where we would go through a series of exercises and everybody else would have their hands on their knees and Brendan would just stand there with his arms folded like, I used to run at 50 miles at a pop. This is like 40 reps or something. What are you kidding me? This is not that hard. But the one thing too that if you can talk to a little bit, maybe you kind of touched upon it already, but for me, when I had all my blood work and other kind of things tested for me when I got sick, it was all about inflammation. You know what I mean? Inflammation was everywhere. And, I used to get PRP and Synvisc in both my knees, because I was a skier and I just thought, well, I'm older, I'm going to have to do all that kind of thing. And, is it correlated? I haven't had injections in my knees in like 4 years.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely think it is. Like chlorophyll, minerals, things that are inherent to plant-based foods do reduce inflammation. Those are alkaline forming. Inflammation is acidic. Like you can bring that down very measurably. I found that huge too. It was so long ago that I actually didn't realize it as inflammation first. I realized it first as efficiency. Like I could just move my muscles more easily. I applied less force to move my muscles. So running, so many strides per mile. If each one just uses a tiny little bit less energy over the course of a marathon, that's significant. So you really do notice things like that. So, but I have heard, the inflammation coming down from people who have started later, as being a huge part of this too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would benefit from a dietary shift as they get older because, I mean, just time and, time under tension and exercising a bunch of years. Like, you look at Arnold still lifting weights. I wonder how his back feels or shoulders or his hips or his knees feel on any given day. I'd be curious to see how he eats. I just know for myself, based on my, this morning my buddy Vache came over and last night I went to bed a little earlier than normal. I stopped eating about 2 hours before I went to bed. I got a lot of work done. We got this new program coming out and the level of stress was down. So it's interesting. A lot of times you're not even paying attention to those things. But, as I went to bed last night, I got under the covers and I just felt, sometimes I get under the covers and my mind is racing and I've got like some aches and pains. So I'm trying to adjust to get in the right position so I have less aches and pains. But last night I felt like a newborn baby, you know what I mean? And I remember getting in bed and thinking, oh my God, I get a feeling I'm going to fall asleep in seconds. And I had no memory of it. It's like and then all of a sudden the alarm went off. And I was like, damn, this is how it's supposed to be. And it doesn't always happen. It's because sometimes I stay up too late. Sometimes I eat too close to when I'm going to bed. Sometimes I'll cheat a little bit, you know what I mean? And it's back to every morsel matters and just following the rules. And then Vache came over and all my buddies had something going on and they blew me off. I don't know what their excuses were. Their excuses were lame either way. And Vache and I just said, we got about 24 sets in. And I go, let's do 8. Let's get 32 in. You know what I mean? And it's just a really great feeling to be able to do that, push that hard. I mean, we were lifting for about an hour and 40 minutes. We had the time and why not? We felt great. We just kept going. And Scott's been, Morgan, who's on this call, he's been through workouts like that with me. And it's just nice. I mean, I'm going to be 65 in a couple of months and to be able to do that, lift heavy, a lot of body weight stuff, a lot of weight dumbbell stuff and all that. And come away relatively unscathed. I'll be a little sore tomorrow or the next day, but and it really comes down to what I'm putting in my mouth. You know what I mean? I don't know a lot of people my age, and you're younger than me, that can kind of go that hard. And a lot of it has to do purely because of the plant-based stuff. I mean, I've been back from Jackson for a while and I haven't cheated since I've been back. So it really seems to be helping me a lot. There's a ton of questions here, dude. So let me fire through them. We might cover some stuff we've already covered, but these are some great questions. Here's number one from Dan Barkey. Is that you, Dan? Where are you, buddy? You in the dark? I don't see him here. How do we ensure proper levels of protein via a plant-based plan? And what are some of your favorite sources? Now, I know you already covered that, but it's kind of specific to that question. How would you answer that?
Yeah, so when you eat more whole foods too, you actually get a lot of protein just kind of in anything you eat. Like I was saying too, the bread, I'll have a sandwich with sprouted bread. Just in the bread, it's 12 grams there. And then I'll, add some tempeh or tofu. I mean, I like tofu. Some people don't, as long as you get organic and so on. I do well with it. It doesn't bother me. Or they have cashew nut cheese now. That's pretty tasty. Put some of that on, some hummus, stuff like that. It's just basically chickpeas. And you're getting probably 30 grams of protein in the sandwich. And then, I've had that shake earlier in the day. I just graze throughout the day a lot as well. Nuts and seeds. If you want more like real protein sources, you can, there's some great new stuff too. Like Beyond Meat has got some really good new things now that are really a lot cleaner than they've had in the past too, like fewer ingredients. And there's another really good one called Meaty. It's just meat with an I on the end. That's mycelium. So it's the mushroom roots.
Oh.
They spin that together with this machinery. So it's very few ingredients. It's just basically mycelium. And it's like a steak. You cut through it with a knife and But yeah, check out meaty.com too. It's pretty cool. So
MEATI. Okay.
yeah, it's a really cool new one. Yeah, there's there's so many things now. Like, it's so much easier. Just even the good old rice and beans, I still love. Not everyone does, but then rice and beans, you can make it taste really good. Some lemon and lime, some sea salt, some cilantro. It's I like it. It's maybe it's just my palate's evolved to that, but I don't know. I'm pretty simple that way.
Yeah, when we were in Jackson Hole, there's a place called what the heck was it called, Scott? Remember they Pika's, P-I-C-K-A, P-I-C-A apostrophe S. And they would have burritos, but I don't do the gluten thing. So I'd have an open face, just whatever, mixed greens, grilled, just vegetables, rice, beans, guac, and some salsa. I mean, just heaven on earth. You know what I mean? I think I had that like once a week when I was there. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you got your go-tos and you love them and it's not creating any problems, then, I don't mind eating the same meal 3 or 4 times in a week if it's something I really enjoy.
Yeah, you find what works, you just stick with it. And
yeah.
Yeah.
How long can you eat a vegan only diet before you need supplementation, and what supplements would you need to take?
Yeah, so I actually think if you eat if you are paying attention to it, I don't think you need any supplements. I know some people will say B12, but you can get that from vegetables, root vegetables. There's B12 on there. B12 actually is bacteria that you just kind of get. I do know a lot of people who like to just have the insurance. They like a good multi, a good vegan multi that has B12, iron, calcium, things like that. But like I say, if you're getting a good diet, you're not going to eat that. There's one that I do take sometimes when I'm training a huge amount, or well, I guess it's more than normal because you're taking in calories that are sometimes more just for the sake of calories than actually nutrition. So you want to make sure you get in enough nutrients there, or if you're traveling, it's good too. But if you go to thefeed.com, it's this nutrition website, and there's a vegan formula on there that's really good, that has everything, the omega-3 and all that. And again, I don't think you need this if you really pay close attention to your diet or if you're used to it, but it's a great insurance policy, I suppose. And like I say, if you're training extra hard or if you're traveling, it can be good for that. So yeah, check out thefeed.com, and then there's a vegan formula under I think it's called the Feed formula, and it's on there. It's a good one.
Oh, good to know. Here's another one from Dan. Are there certain foods that you eat for performance versus foods that you eat for healing and recovery?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think like things that are more restorative, like these algae, like spirulina, chlorella, they can sometimes upset your stomach a little bit. So you don't want to have them like before anything intense, but they're very cleansing. Like that's why they upset your stomach, is they're actually getting toxins and so on out. So, there's like a pre-workout and a post-workout. Post-workout is more when you would want to have something like that. So that's more sort of restorative. And also before like a hard workout, you don't want a lot of protein because you don't burn it. You want a little bit if it's a long, easy workout, so your body doesn't burn protein as fuel. But if it's intense, short workout, you want more sugar, really, like a date or something like that. So yeah, like the more performance are more sugar, carb type things, and more restorative are more the minerals, the greens, the protein, that type of thing. Like you wouldn't eat a big salad right before a workout, right? Like there's fiber and there's stuff in there that you don't want before a workout, but after it's great.
Right. Here's a question from my wife. Is there still gluten in sprouted bread? Are all sprouted breads created equal? Do some have gluten, some don't? I'm going to probably add to that question.
I think you can get sprouted rice bread, which then would not have gluten. It probably is possible, but what's interesting about the sprouted bread is many people, unless you have celiac and you're very sensitive to gluten, people who are typically sensitive to gluten don't have an issue when it's sprouted. So when it's heirloom variety wheat and it's been sprouted, it usually doesn't bother anyone's stomach or give them any issues. So you can try that, but if it does, then yeah, there probably are some gluten-free sources. I haven't actually looked into that. There probably are though.
So here's another angle at that topic. Are there probably a lot of people who are gluten-free? They don't have celiac, right? But they have a gluten intolerance. That if they went to am I one of these guys? I'm basically asking this for myself. Would it be worth me experimenting there a little bit and getting some sprouted breads? Usually sprouted breads in the store are frozen, right? You find them in the frozen. Right. They're not on the shelf because they won't hold up, right? But would that be something we're trying, and just kind of, having some sprouted bread like you with having I don't think I've had 3 sandwiches in 4 years. You know what I mean? I just avoid bread like that,
I mean, for me, it works really well. Like that's a staple for me. I probably eat 4 to 6 slices of shredded bread a day. Wow. I eat a lot of it.
Do you ever toast it, Brendan, or you eat it?
I always toast it. Yeah.
Yeah. You always toast it.
Yeah. But yeah, and you can try it for sure. Just see how you feel. I just went on how I felt, and I can't eat stuff like seitan, which is the concentrated gluten. Like I feel terrible. My stomach hurts. I get tired. But when it's in that more natural form and sprouted, it makes all the difference.
What are some brands, sprouted bread brands that you can think of?
Silver Hills is the one I usually get. There's a variety within that brand. There's one called Squirrely. I can't remember what the others are called, but you'll see them. They're all in the freezer, like you say. And then Ezekiel as well is another one. Silver Hills is my favorite. I've been having that since I was a little kid. It's like, I don't know, it's just a staple of mine.
And Whole Foods probably?
Yeah, Whole Foods.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm going right now. I'm calling Amazon Prime right after this call. Let's see. Where are the majority of your protein components coming from? I guess you've kind of already covered that question, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, there are, and again, if you want like, because when I started eating more plant-based, I stopped thinking of like everything being separate, and because protein's just in a lot of things when you're eating more natural. Even a salad, percentage-wise is 40%, like the greens are 40% protein. Some 60, like greens have a lot of protein percentage-wise. I mean, you have to eat a ton to actually get a measurable amount of protein, but just saying that, it's just there's protein in more places than you would think when the food's not refined, when it's not processed highly. But a good transition thing too is things like Beyond Meat. You can eat a big burger or the sausage. Right. They're delicious. They're very filling, and if you're really hungry, you have a big workout, something like that's great. Then you just treat it like you would meat. It's percentage-wise to protein, it's pretty much the same, and they're getting better and better. And then that new company, Meaty, as I mentioned, you can order on their website. That's really amazing as well. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, you guys. I remember when Brendan came to me, I think you brought the CEO to the house for Beyond Meat in their early stages, and you were an early investor, I think, right?
In Beyond Meat. Well, I had shares because I helped them develop the Beast Burger. It was called in 2015. It was their first burger. But they went public and stuff, and it's all different now. But they're still a great company. But
right.
So yeah, who I brought to your house was actually Tyler.
Tyler
started a company called Purist that sells all the pea protein to Beyond Meat and to Vega at the time. Yeah. So yeah, he's a former NFL player. He won a Super Bowl with the Saints. And now he runs this company, the biggest pea protein company in the country, based in Minneapolis. And was an amazing athlete. Then he transitioned. His dad started the company. He took it over. But yeah, you killed his legs that day.
Yeah. There you were, arms crossed, like you felt nothing, and he was next to you on the ground about to puke. I mean, I've had professional Olympic speed skaters at my house doing that routine who felt like they were going to hurl. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. Not to get in, not a little side thing here, but that routine and probably my balls and boxes routine, which I think you've done a couple times. We've strayed away from that one because it's a little bit too high impact, and jumping on those boxes hasn't worked out for me lately. But it was really that plyo routine and my hardcore Monday night cardio. And Scott is here to witness. I don't think I've ever skied so fast and so hard in my life, honestly, at 64. I mean, it was just, and being a plant-based athlete. I mean, before I was eating burgers and hot dogs. I mean, you go to a skis resort, and every meal that everybody that passes by is beige. It's all French fries and fried chicken. And it's just like, there's no color at all. And this is how people are eating. But yeah, poor Scott, like this would be Scott skiing, and this would be me. Pretty much going all the way around. That's right, Boo. You know it's true. So here's a great one from Mary. And I know she's not the only person that feels this way. This is what happened to me early on. But I mean, now that I have 1, 2, 3 food delivery services, I've kind of nipped it in the bud. She writes, I tried to eat vegan for about 8 months, but I got so 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros bored, because it seemed like most of the recipes I found were chickpea-based pastas, flour substitutes. Have I missed an obvious way to get more variety as a vegan eater?
Yeah, it's interesting. And actually, so that's another part of the protein question too. Those chickpea pastas are great, but you can only have that so often before you get sick of that, right? But those are pretty impressive. Like just lentil pastas or chickpea pastas, just like one ingredient. It's pretty amazing. But
that's all we have in our pantry. It's like chickpea and you name the vegetable they're made out of, and they don't, you got to cook them just right. They get a little mushy sometimes, but yeah, I love them. I eat them up. Yeah. So how can she? What can she do so she prevents that boredom? Like, how does she?
Yeah, I mean, like even just search some recipes online. There's so many great vegan recipes. There's so many great vegan cookbooks out there now, and curries, like lots of big curries. There's Thai vegan in LA on Main Street that I love. It's very simple, but it's the best curry. It's just, you can get a red, a green, a yellow, and it's delicious. All these vegetables and rice and some have tofu, some have tempeh, some have beans. It's just really good. And so just keeping it interesting, and yeah, I know Fire Road you've had for a while, Tony, and that's a good one too. Like, so that's one that I know very well. I helped develop the meals there, and it's I think it's really good. It's specifically for athletes, so it's bigger portions, more antioxidants, more protein, and so on. And you can even order it just for a while and get a feel for it, and then it's like, okay, I can just make this myself. But try the variety, right? And you get going there. So order, one of each, like 12 different meals, and then think, okay, I'll just look at this. I know how to make this now. I can do this. So yeah, there's a lot of variety. But just also everyone has their own taste, right? Like what they prefer. But I really like those big vegetable curries. I eat a lot of, like in my salad even, or in my sandwiches, I basically make salad in there. I put so many greens and I just pack it in. And I find that really helps too. I use arugula. I like arugula a lot. It's bitter. It has a lot of minerals.
Love it. Love it.
It's great.
Yeah. I put arugula on my Fresh Brothers vegan gluten-free pizzas when I'm really living on the edge. How many books have you written, Brendan?
4, and 2 have second editions. It feels like a whole different world ago that I did that, a whole different life. It's I couldn't imagine being that focused to try and do that now. But
I wrote 3 somehow, and the 4th one seems virtually impossible. Like the thought of, I have an outline. Like every time I think of a chapter title, I write it down. So I just have a piece of paper with chapter titles. That's about as far as I've gotten. Yeah. What are the name of the 4 books, and where can people find them?
So you can get them on Amazon or really any online bookstore for sure. So Thrive is the first one, and it's really just my nutritional philosophy. A lot of the stuff I've talked about today, the cortisol, stress, how to lower that. There's 100 recipes in that as well. That came out, I think, in 2007. And then there's a second edition, a 10th anniversary edition, of course, 2017. And then I did a fitness one too that has, some, I guess, ways to boost your testosterone naturally through workout and through food and nutrition as a workout program as well in there. And then there's another one that's called Thrive Fitness. And then there's another one called Whole Foods to Thrive. This is publishers' names, by the way. They just wanted to stick with the Thrive thing, but it's a recipe book, 200 recipes, and then Thrive Energy Cookbook, another recipe book. And that one has a lot of pictures that I think, it looks really nice. It's visually really, yeah, there it is. Scott has a picture of it right there. So
flip it through. Look, he's got all, look at his little notes in there.
yeah, that's
that must be fun. Yeah, man.
Good. It's the best compliment to an author. See those.
Yes, exactly right. That means they're actually
ears or notes in there. Someone's actually reading it.
Like my that John Kabat-Zinn book, Full Catastrophe Living. That's after I got sick, that book saved my life. Here's one from Dan. I mean, I've been a Beyond Meat guy for some time. I don't. For a while, I was having Beyond Meat every day. They had make those little sausages, especially the spicy ones.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I put that in the air fryer, and I have fake eggs to go with my fake meat. Yeah. It reminds me of childhood. And then I'll even take some organic, I think Mark Sisson's product, Primal Nutrition ketchup on that. And it's just, it's lovely. But Dan writes here, and I'm curious what you think. Are you concerned with some of those meats being overly processed in any way?
I mean, when you compare it, I'm not a big fan of Impossible, just because to me, it just, my stomach just doesn't go. It just doesn't work very well with me. But Beyond, I really do like, you got to compare it to obviously regular meat. You can't compare it to like a kale smoothie, right? I mean, obviously a kale smoothie is going to be healthier than this.
Right.
It's, I think, time and place, and it does have some things in there that some people would say are red flag, like methyl cellulose, for example. And it sounds scary, but when you actually learn what it is and how it's made and why, it's from a root vegetable, and it's less scary than you think when you understand it. I know, like Michael Pollan, he wrote that book a few years back and said, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. If you don't understand it, don't eat it. And it's like, well, if you don't understand something, is it best to assume that it's bad?
It means that you're not. If I don't know what pacromandantic means. Does it mean I never use it again? And anybody who does is an idiot. Right. Sometimes it's nice to be educated about certain things, so you can expand your world a little bit. Yeah,
that's a good quote. You should definitely have that as a chapter for next year.
Good time to write that one down.
Write that down. But no, I think that ignorance is never the best approach. Like, if you just don't understand it, learn about it. Maybe it is bad, and then but don't just assume it's bad because you don't understand it.
Yeah, because you can't pronounce it, right?
Yeah, and there are advancements that sometimes do, like with food tech. The tech is actually in, like with meaty, the tech is not in the food. The tech is in the machinery that weaves the mycelium mushroom roots together to give it a fiber that cuts similar to meat. And that's, again, there's no tech in the food. It's in the, like I say, the weaving of it. So I think, I think they have their place. And I think when you compare it to meat as well, like when you actually see what's in the meat and what's fed to the cows and what's actually in there at the end, like bacon, for example, bacon doesn't taste like meat. It tastes like plants and smoke and, hickory and all the things that originated from plants. So, and salami and all these types of meats, they taste like the plants that you cook them with. So, there's a lot to that. You make meat taste like meat by using plants. Because that's, people disassociate that, those two things together. So, it's not something I personally would eat every day, but I think, once a week, twice a week is completely good. Right. And certainly a good alternative to conventional meat for sure. But if you're good with just having a big, kale salad every night, that's great too. But if every once in a while you want that chew and something to bite into and really get a lot of calories in a small amount of volume, then it's a great option.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at too with it now. I was having those spicy Beyond Meat patties like every other day. You know what I mean? I have my shake and I go, let's wait 45 minutes. Now let's have my patties. And now I don't feel like I need it as much, partly because Shauna cooks and I get the delivery, and it took me a while to get it all nailed down, but now I do. Let's see here. So many good questions. Here's one. I won't say who from, but it's here. So it's written like this. So yeah, beans and veggies. What about gas? A lot of people who go plant-based seem to feel like they're farting all the time. And maybe there's something they're missing, or there's maybe some kind of a supplement they could be using. I came up with Foundation 4 as a means to help people with their digestive issues and gas and bloating and irritable bowel syndrome and all the things that people suffer from. You know what I mean? Because, a lot of folks aren't super clean with the sprouted nuts and the sprouted breads, and they make mistakes. And there's a couple vegan days and there's a couple of cheat days. And so their body's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? And so it's a big fartathon. Anything there about that?
I think as you introduce more fiber, as you say, your system gets used to it. And yeah, it sounds like, digestive enzymes that you have that can really help get people over the hump there. I used to drink a lot of kombucha. I would always have that with dinner. Now I drink pulp culture, which is fermented juice that's also alcoholic, because when you ferment something, it produces alcohol. But I have one of those every night with dinner. Really helps with digestion in general. Lots of probiotics, lots of enzymes. But yeah, other than that, sort of introducing it slowly. But yeah, like someone who's eaten it for a while has no issues at all. Like it's just not, certainly no more than, an average person would. But like with me, it was just, I guess I always ate quite a lot of fiber. But again, you want to make sure you have the fiber when you're done working out for the day. You don't want to have a lot of fiber before, running and shaking around and stuff. So just know at a time, like don't have a bunch of beans and rice and then go and, try and crush a big plyo workout or something. Save that crap.
Yeah, I assume that everybody in here knows the sequence on what to eat when, prior or after workouts. I think most folks are up to speed, but you're absolutely right. You know what I mean? You make that mistake once and you don't want to make it again. What was I going to ask you? I had a good question, but I'll have to read one instead. Let's see here. Oh, Shauna says to you, Mary, I've got lots of vegan cookbooks if you want any of them. So you know where we live. All right. They're having a little conversation here, which is nice. I guess. Oh, all right. Here's a couple more. So you're an Ironman athlete. How? Oh, I guess we kind of covered all this. Let's see here. I want to make sure that we don't cover things twice. Okay, I like this question. It's a good one. What is the number one question that you get about being a plant-based athlete? And how do you answer it? Do you have one thing like, oh, you're one of those guys? I bet you when you were an anomaly, but now you're not as much. It's not like you get bombarded with any kind of singular question about it.
Yeah, no, it's in the past. There's definitely protein. That was the big one. Where do you get your protein? Right. But yeah, now it's there are vegan bodybuilders, like quite a few of them. There are every type of great athlete. There's a really good vegan athlete in that sport, if not one of the best. Like one of the most vocal now on eating plant-based is Lewis Hamilton, and Formula One. I don't know if anyone follows that. I actually really don't. I'm starting to learn a little more, but it's incredibly fit. Like to withstand what they got to withstand driving the way they drive. It's very impressive, and he's one of the top in the world, one of the best there ever was, and he's very outspoken about eating plant-based now. And so yeah,
he's got a massive fan base too.
He does, yeah.
So that's when you're really following somebody and you want to know everything about them, and you find that out. I would imagine, much like yourself and maybe me a little bit, that has an impact on people to make that switch.
Yeah, and then you see people like Venus Williams. She's similar to you. She's a Chegan, as she calls herself.
Is that right? That's funny.
Obviously one of the best athletes ever.
Right.
And then guys like Novak, one of the best men.
Right. You've been number one in the world on and off for quite some time. Yeah.
Yeah, his longevity is just, it's amazing, and he credits being plant-based for decades for that, and yeah, and then Game Changers too. If you guys haven't seen Game Changers, definitely check it out. Really well done. James Wilkes, UFC fighter, former UFC fighter, made that film really very well done.
Very well done. And you had a part in production of that film, is that right?
Yeah, one of the executive producers, along with Arnold and Lewis as well, Jackie Chan, James Cameron. They had some really good folks involved there. Because the director Louis Sahoya, who made The Cove, which was
about the dolphins that were being slaughtered.
Yeah. So he came on as producer. Or director, I guess it was director. And then from there, because he had won an Academy Award, all these other folks came in, like James Cameron brought in Arnold, and and it just, when you got those guys, you got anyone you want. So
yeah, right. Let me ask you this question, Brendan. How much do you weigh?
It's about 175.
175. You're how tall? What are you, 6'2"?
6'1"? Yeah.
So how many grams of protein do you try to get in the day based on your height and weight? Or maybe it's not.
I don't even it just settles where it settles at this point, and I'm maintaining good muscle tone and strength. And if I had to guess, I'd say, maybe like 90 to 100 grams, something like that.
Right. There's always that adage that for every pound that you weigh, if you really want to build muscle, you have to have a gram of protein per pound. I mean, as a bodybuilder, maybe, but for you as an endurance guy, probably not.
Yeah. And when I'm doing lots of endurance training, like doing more, I actually eat a little more protein, because when you're in that fat burning zone, your body, the whole point is to teach your body to burn fat as fuel to spare glycogen. So you basically never bonk, you never hit the wall, you burn fat, which is the whole point of that training. But a percentage of that fat burning zone is actually muscle. So you are burning some muscle, which means your strength to weight ratio goes down. So at times of a lot of endurance training, I do have more. And in gram for gram, some people actually think that gram for gram endurance athletes should have more protein than bodybuilders. Because obviously bodybuilders weigh a lot more, but the endurance athletes are burning muscle if they don't replenish it with protein. So that's I thought was kind of interesting as well.
Here's a question that I don't think you and I have ever covered, which I like this question a lot. It says regenerative farming is on the rise. Can you speak to it and what it means for our food, the quality of our food and our health and the planet's health?
Yeah, so regenerative farming, I mean, I'm not an expert. I have been learning more about food security and so on, obviously trying to, make the most use of the land here in the US. And Tyler, who you met, he does know a lot about this. So he works with a lot of farms in Iowa, growing pea protein, and so it's not monocrop either, like it's cycled. So some crops actually put nitrogen in the soil and others take it. So they can be symbiotic, right? You plant one, and then when that's harvested, you plant a different one. And one thing to be aware of too is that there's only a finite amount of minerals in the soil. Like minerals are inorganic. To get minerals in you have to get them from plants, and plants have to get them from the soil. Right. And if there's none in the soil, there's none in the plants. So that's one of the issues of over farming, is you grow food that, sure, the yield is measured in calories or volume or weight, but it doesn't address the nutrition, which can be an issue. Like I think crop yield should be reassessed to be measured in nutrition yield, right? Because who cares about volume if we don't have nutrition? Right. So then that will be an incentive to make sure that the soil is remineralized, and therefore there's minerals in the plants. And it's interesting too. Like recently in LA, when there were all those forest fires, the trees burned down, and it's all bare. But then in the spring, you got more flowers than ever, because what happens? All the minerals that have been pulled out of the soil into that wood, now the wood is burned and gone, but all the minerals, because they're inorganic, they can't burn. They go back into the soil. And then you get these amazing, super blooms, which we're experiencing now, also because a lot of rain, but that's also because of those fires that happened a few years ago. And now all the minerals in the soil, it's just incredibly rich and fertile. So yeah, making sure that, like, obviously I'm a big advocate of that for those reasons, and getting the minerals in the soil, keeping them in the soil, therefore keeping them in the plants, and therefore, not monocrop, and being very, very aware of good farming practices. That way, obviously, it makes sense.
Yeah, very cool. I don't have any more questions, and I see that we've kind of gotten through everything in the chat. I just want to give, and here we are, it's almost 6:15, and I wanted to kind of respect Brendan's time. But did anybody else have any kind of last minute questions, just verbally? You can unmute yourself if you do, and if not, we can just say thanks. Anyone? Bueller? Just faces staring back at us, Brendan. My friend, good to see you. It's been too long, and it's nice to know that you're just down the street. So again, like I said, I'm going to invite you to Plyo again.
Yeah,
and,
great.
And you haven't done it in like 3 years, so you'll probably still put us to shame just because of who you are. But that's the the last thing I want to say is about that. When I first met Brendan, it was always it was you meet certain people. Like I've met professional tennis players and basketball players, and I even trained a professional football player for 6 months, and he did really well till he broke his foot. But just to see people at that level, it's weird, because I think I'm pretty fit. I mean, especially at my age. But you are truly an anomaly, man. And it's you walk the walk and you talk the talk, man, as well or more so than anybody I've ever known. You know what I mean? And you just get it. Like every morsel matters for you, and you might have like your biggest cheat is a Beyond Meat spice patty. Like that's it for you. But it's incredible to see, you ride your bike 35 miles to come to my house to do a really hard workout, and then you ride that bike home again. I'd have to go straight to the hospital, I think. But then again, based on what I do for what I need, like my ninja course stuff, and to be able, like I was telling a friend the other day, when right at the beginning of my plant-based journey, I was skiing in a place called Grand Targhee, which is on the other side of the Grand Tetons, around about an hour and a half from my house. And that was early season. It was December, and it was, there's not a lot of snow, but there was enough to keep the whole mountain open. But it's tricky, you got to keep your eyes peeled for little trees and rocks and stumps and things. But there was this one run, and this was like, again, my third attempt to be plant-based, but I was telling everybody, I'm in month 3 or month 4. I don't know where I was. And there was this run where the snow was pristine and no one had skied it yet. And it was pretty beautiful. And it was about, I don't know, maybe almost 3, not quite 3,000 feet, but, and I just skied it top to bottom. And I used to take a break at 2 very specific places. You know what I mean? And I got to the bottom of the lift, and I looked up at my 2 little friends. It was my friend Allison and Eileen Scanlon, and they just watched me ski all the way to the bottom. And I got to the bottom, and I wasn't even tired. You know what I mean? It was just a freaky, exciting place to be. And this was this was a couple of seasons ago now. I guess I was plant-based for more than a couple of months at that point. But that's the reason why I wanted to have Brendan on, because he's a perfect, real, live version of what it's like when you eat super clean. And I mean, he's a youngster, he's only 48, but still, I know when he's 58 and 68 and 78, he's probably going to look just like that. He's going to perform at this incredible level. And a lot of it has to do with not only this training techniques, but it has a lot to do, obviously, with managing your stress, keeping your cortisol levels down, keeping your adrenal glands from getting fried. And a lot of that starts with what you put in your gob. Every single meal, every morsel matters. And when you cheat, you set yourself back. When you don't, you can move yourself forward. And he's an example of that. And I'm trying to be more like Brendan when I grow up. So Scott, no more vegan cookies, buddy, for you. All right, you're done. Telling you, man. Even though you're strong as shit, so you're strong as hell, man. It's unbelievable. So thank you, Brendan, so very much. So really appreciate you. And let's reconnect here a little bit once in a while. It's always fun to have you here at the house, and wait till you see all the new toys here. We got all kinds of fun things to play on.
Oh yeah, look forward to it. Be great.
Yeah. We'll get you back in the Tuesday, Thursday circle too, if you want, man. So, and you'll probably ride your bike from Venice. I'm not surprised. Something that you might do, but you don't have to. Again, You're a star. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here. And everybody else, thanks for looking in. And hopefully you took some notes. And, just take one or two things that you could do. Thank you, Mary. That's different than what you're already doing. Like, are you struggling with inflammation? Are you're having problems with your sleep? Is your endurance down? You're not recovering quick enough? Do you feel like you're not showing up for all your workouts because you're tired? Or you're suffering from some sort of aches and pains or fatigue? You know what I mean? Maybe you just need to go to the store and buy some sprouted bread. That could be step number one. You never know what it is. But anyway, that's it from me, Brendan. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you've really enjoyed this interview. I can tell because you're watching it, because I can see you. Anyway, since you're here, I know you're really going to fall madly in love with this next one. I mean, I'm talking about knowledge consumed by you. All you got to do is go right over there